It's the Sports Zone Unfiltered, brought to you by H-E-B.
Welcome back to the Sports Zone Unfiltered. Well, it is not often that we have a Houston legend in the house, and we have just that today. Dan Pastorini, former Oilers.
Oh, Dan. Okay.
I was going to say.
You thought it was you? Lopez?
Sorry, my bad.
Please. No, Dan Pastorini, former Oilers quarterback, joining us now. Dan, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Brooke.
Well, let's get right to it. Former NFL players, about 500 of them, have sued the league. They said that they got pumped full of painkillers. They didn't know what they were getting. There weren't prescriptions given to them. You, I'm sure, have heard about this lawsuit, and you've experienced great pain in your career, everything that you went through from punctured lungs to broken ribs that you played through. What is your opinion on this lawsuit?
Well, back in the 70s when I played, there were dispensing jars in the locker room of everything from Quaaludes to Valium to Percocet to Percodan to Black Mollies to White Crosses to Desoxyn and so forth. And they were there just like any candy in a candy store, and they were being dispensed by trainers. And I remember one time against Cincinnati, I was asked, our trainer, when I think it was my second year, I said, I need something to sleep tonight because I haven't been sleeping too well. He gave me 2 Quaaludes. I didn't know what they were.
Wow.
I had no idea what they were. And you saw the movie The Wolf of Wall Street?
Right. I
mean, I was like that at the team meeting. And I woke up the next day and went to breakfast. I said, what the hell did you give me? And he told me. And I said, don't ever give me those again. And, it's a thing where your foolish pride wants you to play. And your ego wants you to play, and you don't want your peer pressure, you don't want to let your teammates down. That's part of it. So at some point, the players are at fault too. But a lot of times they pump stuff into you, and you don't know what they're giving you. They just give you a shot, and all of a sudden you feel better. And they say, oh, it's cortisone. Well, we didn't know what it was. When I played with broken ribs, and they shot me with Marcaine and Novocaine. And they shot me 24 times a game for about 7 games, the last 7 games of the year, through the playoffs in 1978. And, fortunately, we never had to make a comeback in the last 2 minutes of the game because they'd have to shoot me up again if we did. It would wear off, right?
They were on the sideline, right?
And they were getting ready to do it on the sidelines, yeah.
All right, I want to shift to the Houston Texans, which I know you're a big fan and you follow them very closely. There's a player in town, and tell me if this sounds familiar, who's gone through several downs, the lowest of the low with this team. He's seen the team get to the playoffs twice and do pretty well, and then all of a sudden drop off again. Does that story sound familiar? Because that's exactly what happened to you, and I'm wondering about Andre Johnson, how you feel about, should he go, should he want to go, should they let him go?
It's a very difficult situation. I mean, earlier in my career, when it was really bad, like in '73 and '74, we started
one game.
Winning 1 game in '72 and '73, and winning 4 games my first year, was kind of wondering, where's this going? I should have played baseball. I understand his frustration, but again, in my situation, it was foolish pride and also a deal that I made with Bum Phillips that we both regretted till his dying day, and I'll probably regret to my dying day. But after the first playoff games in '78, I said, maybe you do need a change. Maybe I'm too banged up. He says, no. He says, you hang in there for another year. If you still feel the same way, then I'll trade you anywhere you want to go. Well, I did. And unfortunately, he asked me on the flight back from the '79 loss, the Renfro non-catch and whatnot. And I was like, what do we have to do to beat these guys except for carrying weapons out in the field? And, it was a very frustrating. I was very frustrated and depressed and everything else, and had a few scotches in me and probably a couple painkillers. And he comes back on the plane and he looks at me. He said, you're a man of your word. He said, do you still want to be traded? And I thought it was an awkward time for him to ask me, but I said, yeah, maybe it's better for everybody. He said, okay. He said, you did everything I asked you. He said, and I promise you, if that's how you felt, then you go. And after the trade, I regretted it. And looking back on it now, I regretted it. Advice to Andre, you're going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. You grew up here in the city. You're honored here in the city. You're loved here in the city. Don't make that mistake. I think he's long in the tooth right now, but let me ask you this. If he does go somewhere, where are you going to go? Where are you going to choose to go? Do you have a crystal ball? Do you know who's going to be in the playoffs next year?
Right.
Or do you want, you can have a good chance maybe with New England.
Those type teams.
But I understand he wants to go to Cleveland. Cleveland has been on the doormat for many years. So maybe he wants to go and hook up with Johnny Manziel. But you know, last year with Case Keenum, he did pretty well here. You know, so give it a chance. At least go through the preseason. If you feel the same way, then, you know, ask to be traded.
Speaking of Johnny Manziel, he lives his life somewhat in the fast lane. Do you see any parallels? Can you relate? Do you think
You relate to a lot of guys now, huh?
Do you think he'll have success with the way he lives his life?
I don't really care what he does off the field. It's what he does on the field and how he's respected on the field. And I think that's the most important thing. And sometimes you have to have a little bit of a swagger. Sometimes you've got to be the guy that makes those decisions. You have to be able to convince your teammates that this decision is a good decision. I think he's made some bad choices in the past, but you know, the guy likes to have fun. There's nothing wrong with having a little fun, as long as it doesn't hurt the team, as long as it doesn't hurt the organization. I don't care if he was in Vegas having fun. He was off. He's not in his training camp. They were having fun.
Well, John, you mentioned the book. It is Taking Flack, My Life in the Fast Lane, and you co-authored this, of course, with Dan Pastorini. Dan, was it kind of cathartic writing this book?
It was. You know, John approached me prior to my DWI arrest. And, you know, I really had a lot to think about when that happened. And I said, you know, this is really stupid and I've got a problem and I need to do something about it. And I remember coming back and my girlfriend saying, you know, the only thing that's going to come between you and me is your drinking. And I said, well, you know, I need you in my life a lot more than I need drinking. So that's it, I'm done. Not 2 minutes later, I get a call from Bum Phillips. You know, he said, hey, Dan, you know, I said, Coach, I said, I promised her, I promised you. He said, well, I know you're a man of your word, so that's it. That was 4 years ago, April 26th. So John approached me. We started doing the book, and a lot of it was predicated around that incident, which, you know, changed a lot. That's where it ended, but that's really where it begins for me.
You also have another great venture going on, your rubs. And
I do.
Tell us a little bit about those.
Well, you know, people don't realize that my parents were in the restaurant business for 37 years. And, you know, here we are today, and we're in about 1,000 stores nationwide right now and growing every day. So it's been a challenge, but, you know, we're starting to get some traction. And the thing is, if people taste it, they love it.
Well, let me jump in because, as you know, I mean, I cook all the time. It's one of my biggest hobbies, barbecuing and cooking. It's all I use. And that's no BS. It's all I use. Dan knows this. And, you know, no matter what, it's good stuff.
All right. Well, great stuff having you here today, Dan. We
Thanks.
really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, we will have Sean Pendergast after this break. He's always funny. He'll have some great takes. Stick with us. It is the Sports Zone Unfiltered, brought to you by HEB.